but
You're
they
not
all
really
loved it.
choosing.
Right. But
Did they really,
they
though?
thought they did.
Right.
It was
Yeah, I mean, it'll grow
empowering when it
back.
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now Chuck's on a major power trip.
Yeah.
And like shortly after this, they also kind of decided that children should start the school at 7 months old so that they wouldn't have separation anxiety later when they moved into this school. So the kids
Okay.
were like cared for communally. Like everyone took care of the kids. And at this point, like it's kind of small enough that everyone knows everyone. This is before they started separating parents from their kids. So the parents were around and the kids would be in a room and the parents could go visit them and do whatever, but they lived separately. So the kids had like a healthy detachment from their parents.
Right.
But, and like a lot of the people involved said like they loved taking care of all the kids. Like it was great for them. And the moms even nursed each other's babies and took care of them and gave the other parents time off. So at first it was like a really good thing because people got breaks and the kids were happy and whatever. But obviously eventually they started separating them.
Yeah.
And that's when things kind of weren't so great for like the kids' development because now they don't have their parent around.
Right. They can't even see them at all. Yeah.
Right. And they also had a thing where couples couldn't live together unless they were married, but it was really encouraged to be in monogamous couples. Like it wasn't like a free love situation. It was like you had your one partner and that was your, like if you were dating, you absolutely did not sleep around. Like it was very like you were matched off. And they were encouraged to have a lot of sex and they would, but they couldn't live together unless they were married, right? So they had to go to this room that was called the guest room.
Yeah.
And they had to check it out. They had to like sign up for an appointment in a book.
Oh no. I don't like that.
I know. So
Oh no.
they would like check out the room for a night and like they could go in and the woman would like set up the room to be super romantic and like incense and they brought their own sheets and candles and set it up however they wanted and then they would have the room for the night. But like on the show they were saying like they'd see two people walking together towards the room and everyone would know what they were up to. Like it was weird, but it was like really encouraged. And they even had like a little like star chart. Like they wanted you were being rewarded for having as much sex as possible. It was like, yay, like good for you. But also to me that's like a control thing.
Yeah, for sure. That's gross.
Yes. And I forgot to say this, but Chuck thought that parents ruined kids, like wrecked their lives because their parents would cause all of these like traumas basically, so the kids were better off without their parents. And that was his own personal belief that he made everyone follow.
Oh wow. I mean, dude, there's no way not to traumatize a child.
Right.
Whatever you do is going to be traumatizing in some way, so it's like that's ridiculous to say that parents do that. It's also traumatizing not to have your parents.
Exactly.
So wow.
Yeah. So another questionable thing that had started happening was it was a longer form of the game called the stew, which was like a continuous form of the game. So it never ended. People just kind of tapped in and tapped out. Like they were scheduled in and out at different times and someone would replace them and it would just constantly go. And there was like a gallery where people would sit outside of the circle and watch, but if they had something to say, they could like buzz in and be like, I have something to say, and then they'd add in, but they weren't like a part of it.
Okay.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yeah. And then after the stew came the trip. which was inspired by Chuck's personal experience with LSD, but he wanted everyone to be able to experience that, but with no drugs.
Oh.
So,
okay.
The trip was 72 hours long. So 3 days of sleep deprivation. Everyone dressed in white. They took off all of their makeup. It was this whole, like, ceremony thing. And they did this every weekend. Like, people could do it every weekend. You got to do it. You kind of got to choose. But everyone wanted to do it because it was so great. But it was, like, a guided experience that would essentially, like, make people have an ego death. Okay. And they didn't sleep for 72 hours, which is super brainwashy.
Yeah.
But they had guides and shepherds who facilitated the trips. So not everyone was on the trip. There were like, kind of like, I guess, like in ayahuasca ceremonies, there are people like guiding you through your trip. Yeah. So they would spend the first 4 hours playing the game, but it wasn't like in a circle. It was just them screaming at each other however they wanted to for 4 hours.
It's too much.
To get out all of their rage.
Okay.
And then
4 hours.
Yes, and then they would be put into an alpha state to like meditate, and they wouldn't sleep, or like would only sleep for like a couple of minutes. And then after that, which that must have lasted a while, but after that, their guide would make them talk through like the most traumatic experiences of their lives. And like one of the people on the show was a shepherd or a guide or whatever, but she said that like people would confess like the most, like she said the most troubling thing she heard was like someone said that like an addict said that he had thrown a baby in a dumpster. So it was like kind of this releasing of shame of like we're all, or like there were Holocaust survivors who were talking about what they went through. So it was like a way to like get out all of your deepest, most like private things, and everyone's doing it. So it's not like you're not the only one. Like we're all
we all have shameful parts to ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like, everyone would kind of forgive each other and they'd hug you. Like, you say all of your stuff and then everyone gives you a hug and forgives you. And it's like a release of these things. And then they would, like, attend, like, a big old celebration. And they're all, like, sleep deprived. And I don't think they ate the whole time either. So they were fasted, too. But everyone was on such a, like, high from this, like, huge like cathartic emotional experience. But I kind of called it forced trauma bonding. Like
it is kind of like that,
and I think it would be kind of fun. Like I could see doing it. I'm not gonna lie.
That's why I feel like this would be very therapeutic. I would not want to do it for 72 hours.
No, but the sleep deprivation is part of it.
And not eating and stuff. But I think that's already, or I feel like that is a technique now too, like saying all your shameful stuff, like without all this other stuff. But
with no judgment because everyone there is also sharing.
Like everyone shares that kind of thing, but a shorter time frame.
Yeah.
I could see how that's therapeutic.
Chuck did admit that this was brainwashing. Like, he did later admit that, like, this was a brainwashing technique. But he just wanted everyone to feel the peace and love and everyone to be together and on this, like, in this, like, emotional thing. And at some point...
Did they know that is what the program was?
What do you mean?
Like, the first time he was like, okay, I have this idea, the trip... Like, did he say, like, you're not gonna sleep for 72 hours? Like, did he tell them ahead of time?
No.
Oh my god.
They didn't care.
So. Dude, I feel like there needs to be better consent.
Yeah, but the word of mouth, like, the people would get out and tell everyone how great it was, and everyone wanted to do it. Like, they wanted to do it.
I feel like the first one, though, you kind of need to say, this is what's gonna happen.
Right.
But, whatever.
And at some point they did also have to register as a religion to keep their nonprofit status, and that kind of freaked out non-members.
Yeah.
And, like, also they got really, maybe this is later on. He gets really into anyone who speaks out against him publicly gets sued, like very Scientology.
Oh my God.
Where they just go after every thing, because he had been touted as this like god, and then when someone when the press starts speaking negatively about him, he took it really personally and just sued the fuck out of everyone.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And as Chuck began to grab for more control, they started to allow violence as a form of punishment, which was against one of their golden rules. Like,
yeah.
This is where things really got bad, but they had like Imperial Marines that would carry out this punishment, and I think it kind of started turning into like a Gestapo type thing where like secret police that are, and that creates a power dynamic too.
Right, yeah. That's really bad. Yeah.
So there were over 80 acts of violence, including mass beatings that left teenagers hospitalized. And one member almost died after a skull fracture that I think it turned into meningitis, bacterial meningitis, and he went into a coma. Like, it got bad, and they started, like, speaking out. Like, they were harassing people who spoke out against the group, too. Like, if a lawyer brought charges, and they would, like, personally harass them. Like, the members, they were taking it very personally.
Right, yeah.
Yes. And in one instance, they left a rattlesnake in the mailbox of a lawyer, and they took the rattle off, so he had no way of knowing that it was in there.
Yeah.
And it bit him, and he was hospitalized for 6 days.
Wow.
So this started an investigation.
That's
by
good.
the police. Yeah, they're like, okay, this is pretty fucked up. Yeah. So 6 weeks later, they found a recording of Chuck saying, "We're not going to mess with the old time turn the other cheek religious postures. Our religious posture is don't mess with us. You can get killed dead, literally dead. These are real threats. They're draining life's blood from us and expecting us to play by their silly rules. We will make the rules. I see nothing frightening about it. I am quite willing to break some lawyer's legs and next break his wife's legs and threaten to cut their children's arms off. This is the end of that lawyer. This is a very satisfactory, humane way of transmitting information. I really do want an ear and a glass of alcohol on my desk."
They got that on recording. What the
fuck? Because everything he said was
recorded. Yeah, that's great, but that's fucking... What the hell? How did he go so far off the path?
This is also in the 70s at this point.
Oh, okay.
This is the late 70s. Okay. That's almost 20... Right. Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 58 to 78, 20 years.
Yeah.
From the very beginning. And obviously the press caught wind of that and went crazy, and then Chuck fired back with libel suits, and a lot of people couldn't publish stuff because they won the suits.
How did they win if they had this recording?
Well, I don't know.
He literally said this, but he's saying libel? Like, no.
I don't know. But it was very Scientology of them.
Yeah. Wow.
So, he was arrested while drunk on December 2nd, 1978. 2 other Synanon residents, Joe Musico and Lance Kenton, son of musician Stan Kenton, were also arrested and pleaded no contest to charges of assault and conspiracy to commit murder. Lance Kenton was sentenced to a year in prison. While his 2 associates went to jail, Diedrich received probation because his doctors claimed that due to his ill health, he would likely die in prison. As a condition of his probation, he was not allowed to take part in managing Synanon. So that was in regards to the rattlesnake situation.
Yeah. Dude, he should have just gone to jail. Like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. And after the group after this, the group like basically fell apart because they didn't have their